Hello everyone, welcome to this Novable quarterly webinar. It's a pleasure to see so many people interested in this exclusive conversation that we'll have together. We'll discuss a real-life case study around corporate innovation involving M&A, and we'll see how each step of the way can create value to both the acquirer and the acquiree. So I really hope that at the end of this webinar, you'll have heard a really cool story with tips, tricks, and advice to carry on to your next project, pitfalls to avoid, and also a cool reminder that at the end of the day, it's all a matter of human relationships. So we have three great speakers today. Christophe de Rassenfosse from Property Finder, the acquirer. Fouad Bekkar, who will connect in a minute, from Home Value, the acquiree, and Adele Yaroulina from the European Startup Network, who will moderate this conversation. Looking forward to that. But maybe a few words about Novable maybe before we start. Novable is a young technology company based in Belgium with a global footprint. We work within the innovation area, more specifically within the corporate venturing area. We help innovation-related professionals identify and engage with the most relevant startups and innovations worldwide to feed their growth, R&D, or transformation strategies. So we scout startups using an AI-based technology, of course, complemented by the human expertise of our people, innovation experts, to deliver shortlists in a very short time. And our clients love using Novable and having this platform on their side because we remove from their workload the tedious tasks of analyzing countless startup candidates one by one to eventually disqualify 99% of them. So it takes hundreds of hours for nothing. And we have a theory on that. We call it the SAT syndrome. I don't know if you heard about it, but it's widespread disease. A lot of innovation professionals suffer from. So you have done those long lists, Google or Crunchbase search results, and you start first on your list and on and on and on until you're done or asleep. So our mission is to fight that. In this country, we have the technology to delegate such tasks to the computer with natural language processing and machine learning. The computer can do it. So filter out bad candidates before you even see them and sort potential good ones based on their relevance. So Novable is doing just that. On the platform, you can run searches by yourself. So you'll get results in real time in any language. The computer will retrieve companies based on any keyword string from the company's contextual package, including website content. So it's more than a database. But you can also call your team because technology alone is often not enough. On top of searches, you can run campaigns. So you run them when you have a complex briefing, when you look for something very specific, when you need some vetting, curation, validation, you need the cream of the crop. And in that case, we run other kinds of algorithms that are semantics based. And above all, a Novable agent supports this campaign to ensure that you're delivered with your desired results. So our customers are innovation managers, corporate development teams, procurement departments, but in any case, they work with innovation. So Novable is used as a monitoring tool for specific topics, domains, or industries, but also to find the right partners to work with or the right target to invest in or to acquire. So in a nutshell, that's what Novable is doing. We have happy clients, mostly large companies on both sides of the Atlantic. So now let's dive in today's topic. Let me introduce you to Adele from the European Startup Network. Let's say a specialist in innovation, co-innovations at the crossroads of startups and corporates. So she was the ideal person to moderate this conversation. So Adele, it's yours.
So good early afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a webinar on corporate venturing. I'm Adele from the European Startup Network, and ESN is a Brussels-based independent network. We unify 38 national startup associations from all EU 27 member states. So our mission is to help startups to grow and scale in Europe through access, among other things, to training, to mentoring, and to networking. I have been personally active within the innovation and startup ecosystem since 2011, researching on co-innovation with partners from business and academia across Europe for more than 3 years now, developing innovative training programs and tools in order to help improve the collaboration between startups and corporates. So this allowed me to confirm two things, simply put, that co-innovation generates lots of interest and enthusiasm. To give you an example, in our online courses that we have developed, we have had more than 2,800 learners from more than 140 countries. So real startups, real corporates who work together on real life challenges. And what is most interesting is that we have had more than 2,000 posts within the forum in 1 month, which means highly engaged innovators, co-innovators, craving for quality tools, methods, events around joint innovation. So why co-innovation is so important? And here I would like you, Laurent, to switch to the next slide, please. So just a few words on why co-innovation is currently so important. On the corporate side, we have the corporates who want to stay competitive in the fast-moving global economy. Indeed, the world is evolving rapidly, followed by many uncertainties, and the large companies want to stay competitive in this world. They want to solve specific challenges with new, disruptive, innovative technologies. It might be that they want to attract new talents or to have access to data or to boost the entrepreneurial culture within their company. On the other side, we have the startups, and startups generally struggle to find resources. And I'm not only talking about financial resources, about funding, but also resources such as expertise, mentoring, knowledge, and support. It might be that the startups want and need to test and develop new products and services and therefore engage in co-creation with the large company. It might be that they want to have access to new markets to internationalize and might use the help of a large company, the support. So they are searching for new, strong partners. And more we can see that corporate and startups are teaming up. However, from my experience, even if co-innovation has a huge potential if performed correctly, it is still complex, it is still difficult and challenging. And we will see on the next slide what are the advantages and what the startups and the corporates can learn from each other. So very shortly, on one side again, we have the startups, and they have often a different culture, a different way of working, of thinking, and that is generally characterized by flexibility, by a high degree of agility. They often apply a lean approach, which is logical because actually startups are forced to enter the market with the first MVP and therefore get the first feedback from the customers quite rapidly, quickly, and they can iterate faster, and the innovations can therefore be developed faster as well and brought to the market with the appropriate market feedback. They have an inherent entrepreneurial and innovation culture as well, which they can bring to the table when collaborating, engaging into a collaboration with a corporate. And on the corporate side, so we have well-established companies that are often, on the contrary, under pressure to meet the needs, finished product to the market that includes all the features, yet might like an innovative approach. And they also generally like to minimize the risks. When it comes to decision-making, implementation, execution, and delivery, larger companies are often also slower and might be more bureaucratic. So, however, established companies have the resources, so the financial resources, experts and mentors to guide the different teams and that co-innovation is actually, according to me, so this is the creation of value within the collaboration, creating the value through collaboration. Second thing, just before diving into the discussion, as I mentioned in my presentation, not all collaborations succeed. From my experience, co-innovation is definitely difficult, complex. It can be challenging. So it requires a good organization, a good planning, and lots of patience. This is a fact. And this is why I'm very happy to moderate this discussion between two parties who succeeded in making the acquisition, the collaboration happen. And this is, for me, a huge achievement. So today we have with us Christophe de Rassenfosse, Chief Product Officer at Property Finder, and Fouad Bekkar, CEO and founder of Home Value. They are both based in Dubai, and they will share with us their innovation journey. So you will see this collaboration is off the beaten track, but that is exactly what makes it unique and interesting. And in the end, you will have the opportunity to join the discussion and ask your questions. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the talk, and eventually you'll lunch. So Christophe and Fouad, the floor is yours for a few words of introduction, maybe about yourself and your businesses before we dive into the discussion.
Fouad, do you start?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yeah, we do.
Sure. Maybe just an introduction first about myself. Hi, everyone. Fouad Bekkar. After I graduated with a master's degree in computer science and electrical engineering with a specialism in artificial intelligence, I started my career designing software for nuclear power plants around the world. Then I worked in investment strategy and big data in different multinationals and conglomerates in China, France, Germany, Japan, Dubai, and then in the Netherlands. Then in 2019, I launched with my co-founder a startup called Home Value, which is a real estate valuation and insights platform powered by big data and AI. For 2 years and a half, then the startup was acquired by Property Finder early this year in January. Now we have joined the Property Finder group. So this is a kind of a short introduction, and we will give you more details later.
Yeah, and on my side, so I'm Christophe de Rassenfosse. I started in the digital world the year when Google was launched, so it's been a while. And since 2002, I'm in the business transformation. So my first journey there was moving the business model of Wolters Kluwer, which is a B2B editor, from paper to digital. And here it was clear that at that time they needed to move to the digital world. You can't believe it, but that's true. Then I joined Stepstone, which is a marketplace for jobs, a pure player, although everything was to be reinvented. So I've been through a series of acquisitions for various reasons, whatever it is, market share, innovation, adjacent business model. I can share the detail with you. And now with that, I joined Property Finder, which is another marketplace, not for job, but for real estate, in a booming sector here in Dubai, and we are a market leader in the Middle East. That's in short who I am. Adele, shoot.
Thank you, Christophe and Fouad, for your introduction. I can again see the echo. Is it the case for you too? Oh, good. Okay, I will try to handle it then. I hope it's not in my head. So I would say I have a first question for you, Christophe. What were your challenges? Have you identified any specific challenges before thinking of acquiring a company? And what were the needs of Property Finder?
Specifically for Property Finder, I joined in Q3 2021, and we were sitting on a pile of data. There is a very, very sense of transparency here in the market. So there is a lot of data available on the market. We obviously, as a market leader, generate tons of internal data as well. 15 years of existence, I mean, almost all Dubai was in one point in time on our website. So we sit on a pile of data, but the challenge was to articulate that. That was a bit the trigger. So there is no real rationale. We knew that we had to do something with that. We were pushed by some milestone, and we had the choice either to build or to acquire. That was the very, very high level. Now, I was prior to joining Property Finder, the challenge was different. Here we had to articulate an acquisition strategy where we had very clear guidance for either acquiring EBITDA, acquiring technical capability, acquiring new market shares, or adjacent business model. So we've been through a journey which then guides the scouting, the assessment, and the PMI. In the case of Property Finder, it was quite straightforward. There is a basic gap in our skill sets, in our ability to manage the data, and home value came on the table.
Thank you, Christophe. And I would then ask the same to Fouad. So regarding your needs, what is actually the added value that Property Finder brought to the table for you? Apart from the funding, I mean, of course, this is...
Yeah, so just to give maybe a brief about the journey. So we started in early 2020. And we launched our first product beginning of 2021. And that was full COVID. And we struggled a little bit at the beginning to find the market fit for the first product that we launched. Then we launched a second product in mid-2021. And that product was a hit. So we found that market fit. We had so many subscriptions, requests, and then the conversation started with different partners who came to us and say, okay, can we talk about acquisition? Can we talk about merger? Can we talk about partnerships? So, and then it triggered that the concept in our head, because we were going in the traditional kind of scheme for a startup where you just raise funds and then you grow. And at this point, it was just conversations. The thing that happened is the meeting that I had with the founder of Property Finder, with the president of the group, and with Christophe in early September, and that was like a hit. It was a click from the first time we met. The vision actually of what we are trying to achieve and what Property Finder trying to achieve merged. Having to serve the consumer and bring in more transparency to the real estate market, and the ambition also to go big in a region that is underserved. So when that click happened, I think it was just a smooth process from then.
And that's important to stress as a corporate here. We were not necessarily looking for a fully sketched product, but the fact that Fouad and his team has been through different iterations, testing market fit, made some progress, show a certain agility. And that was for us super important. So when we had the discussion, I think we spent a month and a half just getting to know each other. Where do we want to go? You know, we didn't speak about the acquisition from day one. I think you came more in the sense of how to partner with the market leader in the region. So we had to get to know each other, and that may be something you cannot automate at all with scouting. You potentially spot the right startup, but then you also need to know the team, their capability, and what they've been delivering to the market. And that's really where it clicked, both in the vision and in the team's ability.
So if I understand correctly, Fouad, there was not particularly a wish to sell ownership of your company beforehand. There was no such strategy. And when you met Christophe, when it clicked, as you say, between you, you have decided on an acquisition to create basically value together, right?
Yes, you always, as a startup, you always have an exit in mind. It could be acquired by a bigger company, or it could be an IPO, or could be other ways of exiting. But it was not that early in our journey in the plan. When we met, it was more a partnership. Let's see how we can work together. When we launched the second product, actually, a lot of people, a lot of stakeholders in the real estate space started telling us, actually, you should talk to Property Finder. We see you with Property Finder, and then there was an introduction that happened from a connection that I knew, and they knew the founder, and then we met, and it started from there. And as Christophe mentioned, there was like an initial phase of knowing each other, understanding where we want to go, what are the capabilities that we have, what are the data that we have, the tech that we had, and how we built what we have built, and then how does it fit in terms of the phase of the journey of Property Finder right now. So, and then it was a smooth process from there.
And you have therefore defined a common goal from the beginning, or how did it work?
We shaped it. It's the vision. The vision was the same, but we shaped that common goal.
I think it is. I mean, we are here to talk about the process, not necessarily about the product. I mean, what is interesting in this case is that the product was not ready for Property Finder. There was a track record in building that product for a B2B audience, and we wanted to present that to the B2C audience. So the shift is completely different. So as I would call it more as with my corporate hat, the discussion was to make sure that we understood the capability and understand if the team could shift from a professional audience to mass market. So that doesn't happen with a checklist or with a due diligence. Now you need to sense where we are, and that's really where the dialogue started. And once we realized that, for the sake of the transparency of here in the market, we could actually reuse the data from Home Value into the audience of Property Finder, the shift was done. And then we could talk about the second stage of the discussion. But the first stage was really about understanding both need and assess if the team, and assess it's through conversation. And there is no, we went through a management presentation, we met the team, but it was really about personal assessment of it. Do we have the right profile to drive it forward? And that is super critical.
And the right resources, indeed, on both.
So
on your side, I say, sorry, Fouad, go ahead.
Yes, apologies. And just to continue on Christophe's point, we have built. So the question that came in one of the meetings is, who are you building for? And that was a critical question, because we have built a B2B product. Property Finder is a B2C mainly driven marketplace. But the intention, and that's why you can only know through conversations. The intention from us as Home Value was actually to serve the consumer at the end. But it was an easy way to go to the consumer, a cheaper way to go to the consumer through B2B. And I think it's then when we knew that, okay, we are trying to serve the same audience. Just to.
Thank you, Fouad, for clarifying this. So as I understand, there was not really a scouting process. So you met organically, and as the journey went, you decided to collaborate, and you went for the acquisition format. Still, the scouting process generally is important when a startup and a corporate decide to collaborate. Maybe, Laurent, you can tell us a few words about what does the scouting process look like?
Well, usually our clients use the Novable platform once they already know what to look for. Because if you don't know what you're looking for, if you're still struggling with the problem, you will not be able to find a solution. So usually the scouting process has already started at the company side, even before they subscribe to a Novable license or request us to do so. And you have a lot of different situations in that, because when you work with innovation, there is no standards, let's say. Each case is different. But we 100% of the time, the only issues that we see at the client sides is the difficulty to formulate their strategy. So it's something that must start really up the road, I'd say. And usually Novable is really useful to find the right partners or targets that you didn't even know they could exist. Because when you drive such a process, you have something in mind that you embody a solution, and very often the solutions you will find are not exactly what you were thinking of. So you have a lot of surprises and serendipity when you look outside your, let's say, organic reach. If you, of course, work in a very dense network in ecosystems, and you can find your bride within this ecosystem, but sometimes you need to go further than that, either because what you're looking for is so specific you can find it in your neighborhood, or because you want to just expand your footprint. So I would summarize it in that prior strategic formulation and extension of the reach are the two main things in that.
Yeah, and to back that up, in our case here at Property Finder, we are a leading brand, so our CEO is highly connected and he knows the scene. So that was, I would say, an organic scouting process. Now, if I compare that to my previous job, Stepstone, we did something like 40 due diligence in 10 years. The thing was to extend our network to unknown territories. And that's where you need to be rigorous in the scouting process. So in that case, we did it manually through connection. We set up a team for 3 months in the US, and they've been collecting 500 names. They've met all of them, and they came back with a super detailed action plan. So it's a different approach. At the time, it was manual. If we can automate that's much better for sure. But you still need at one point in time to call them and check the human part. That's for sure.
Christophe, and did you have in this case any criteria to get to the right target, or maybe during your experience at Stepstone that you can share?
Well, it depends on the ecosystem actually of the. We did for Europe. Stepstone is actually owned by Axel Springer that has their own incubator. So every cycle, every 6 months, we got some HR tech stuff. Then we went to the US, West Coast, East Coast, and there it was more by connecting funds, early stage, be on site, and then go from one meeting to the other. And then naturally you extend. You hear something up, you reach out, because that's super lively there. So that did happen again because we were quite big. As a large corporation, you have access to those type of funds and profile that can share you the information. And then what we did as well, we set up a peer network. We had a commercial alliance to serve worldwide. So we connected all the HR marketplace in one organization. and we exchange. So we talked, we identify target potential, new business model, new technologies, and we share that experience as more as a peer community. And that did work out. When I joined Stepstone, it was 1 brand in 9 countries. When I left, it was 40 brands in 20 countries. So it really works. But
it's very impressive as well.
It's a lot of work. It doesn't happen by itself. Yeah.
Now I would like to take it, to the steps that were taken to validate the mutual interest between the both of you and to create value. How did you validate the mutual interest? Was it legally heavy? How did it happen?
You want to take it, Fouad?
Yeah, I'll give you from the home value perspective, and then Christophe can give you from Property Finder.
Please do, Fouad. Yeah.
For us, the question was like what a company would consider: do I build? Do I buy? Do I hire? It's the same thing for us. Is can we move faster with another partner, or if we move by ourselves? And what are the risks that you are taking? What are the opportunities? And in that assessment, as I said, we had few conversations, and it's based on that assessment that we chose Property Finder. First is the leader in the market, makes it much easier, have the largest audience. So most of the people who are searching for property will come to Property Finder. So everything that we will build within Property Finder will have the biggest audience by default. And when as I said in the beginning, also is the focus also on the consumer, which makes it much larger, and also the stage of growth for Property Finder. We are a growth startup. You consider still a startup, but it's the next step. It's how do you say, the unicorn step is something that we are excited to be part of, to reach that stage. So that was a second element in our assessment. So it's we will go faster and being part of the journey for unicorn.
Yeah, that's the same here. So it's the Property Finder growth journey is on, that's for sure. And for us, pace matters. So again, I think everybody in the call working on the corporate side knows that once your team scale, there is a certain latency in the system. So acquiring technology, product, market share, whatever, needs to be integrated. And the risk is actually to slow down rather than to accelerate. So the process on our side was really to identify, on the one hand, the use case, so to come with a clear roadmap. This is what we want to do. So creating that discussion around, okay, I'm working on the B2B, now I need to present that type of use case in the B2C world so that they know the challenge ahead. And B, making sure that we do not necessarily create or integrate home value in a system where they could not deliver. So it's important for us as well to keep that pace, because it's definitely something we are interested in. If you want to do that organically, it takes time. You need to hire the person, they need to be motivated, they need to understand the ecosystem, and you clearly lose 3 to 6 months onboarding before they start even thinking about the use case. In home values case, it was clear the roadmap was designed. They knew already the challenge ahead and integration. So we still have obviously technical integration to do, and the team routine and company rhythm whatsoever. So there is obviously this corporate layer that needs to happen, but at least there is a clear path and some key milestones. And that has been discussed prior to the acquisition. I think that's the key. We both knew the expectation And I think that facilitated the transaction and the onboarding.
You aligned on the expectations before, and have you also identified key performance indicators beforehand?
In the sense of milestone to reach, yes. Making sure that we are not just looking at Dubai, but we can replicate that in the other markets has been spot. Just looking at KPIs improvement was not the approach chosen. We rather focus on the delivery. And there are critical milestones that we could not miss. But it's not, we didn't look at it for with high North Star metrics like revenue improvement or increase or performance improvement. That was not the point of this acquisition. No. But we do have clear milestone in the plan. Yeah.
Another question I have, and this is related, more to my experience, because from my experience, I know that many collaborations unfortunately fail. And this is partly due to the fact that there exist huge differences between a startup and a corporate in terms of culture, in terms of expectations, in terms of people. So how was it for you, Christophe and Fouad? So did you have any fears, prejudices maybe toward each other, or how did it happen between both of you?
You want to take it, Christophe?
I can. No, because I mean I've been paranoid. I mean we have. I mean when you do so many due diligence in my previous life, yeah, you obviously sometimes miss the point. And there was one case where it was super clear that it will fail, and we've seen that, but we didn't act rapidly. I'm taking my corporate hat. We spend millions in acquiring whatever startup in San Francisco, and we thought it was a good idea to keep the startup alive so that they can continue their market fit research. Now, what did happen though, being a German organization, I was running that acquisition as mostly as a board, in a board seat, and the CEO of the startup keep then not repeating that he got acquired, but it was for him more a financial round. So he was spending the money without too many micro control. And then what did happen at the corporate side, we lose track. We didn't lose track of the progress of the startup because they were making good progress, but we lost actually the reason why we wanted to acquire that company. So we lost the point where we said, okay, we did acquire that company for that specific reason, so that's the integration plan. What did happen? Say, okay, let's keep that as a standalone. They grew, and then you say, oh my God, what do I do with this asset? So in the own value case, that's why we worked upfront on the deliverables so that we knew exactly why we wanted to acquire. And so yes, I think it's those failures can happen. In this case, what we validated upfront was the team ability to onboard the B2C journey checked. We have a milestone plan checked. No, I mean, it's 2 months, so hopefully we're gonna deliver on the milestone plan for sure. But I've been through a case where we failed some acquisition just because we lost the rationale of why did we acquire that business, and that's potentially where you sense or where some red flag needs to be raised at the corporate level. Says, oh guys, step back and maybe change the integration model. In the own value case, it's not an issue. The team is fully onboarded. Fouad has his own department, get the resource. I mean, it's new, so obviously we need to adapt, but the integration plan is completely different.
And what about you, Fouad?
Yeah, from a founder perspective, and I think in general, the startup founders, when they get acquired, there are maybe 2 fears. The first one would be the if there is too much emotional connection to the product, and then the question is, what will happen with my baby? And we didn't, because we had the conversation in the beginning of the, as I said, the vision, and we were also on our side clear what we wanted to achieve beyond the product. It was an easy integration. So that helped us eliminate that risk and the emotional connection to the product and what will happen with that product. And because I'm in charge of that department, so I have the freedom also to make sure that the things that we have built will be serving in a way, in a form, in a shape, somewhere in the, whether consumer or even in B2B. So that eliminated that risk, mitigated it. The second one is the liberty that a founder has on building things. Whatever we want, we can just switch in a day or two and say, okay, you know what, let's build that new feature, or let's do complete shifts. And that's normally a fear with the founders. I will lose that freedom. But it's not the case. Was not the case with Property Finder. Also because of the initial conversations, but also because of the freedom that was given by the leadership. They were very transparent and clear. They said, you have the floor, and you know what needs to be done. We will give you the means to deliver on this. So it's there were ambitious targets, but it's the tools are there, the means are there, and so that helped in mitigating the second risk.
Thank you, Christophe and Fouad. Super insightful, and I think and hope interesting for the audience. I would like to ask both of you, very shortly in bullet points, tell me what are the lessons that you have learned from these collaboration acquisitions, and what were the pitfalls and how did you address them? Very shortly, maybe we can start with Christophe.
In that specific case, for me, it was more having a European mindset, quite structured, going to the Middle East and do this relationship-based approach. It is when you come from a world which is structured around M&A, it's a change. You don't need to overcomplicate the process. You need to take time to understand rather than to ask the question and then come with a clear scorecard and stuff like that. So that was for me the most complicated, it's not the term, but the most disturbing part. My first question when I got introduced to Fouad, but why do you want to do that? That's the question to my boss. And because I did expect an articulated strategy for doing the acquisition, but then when I reflect on it in my previous life, it was also quite opportunistic. We did a lot of acquisition through the internal network, through the opportunity that it created. And in this case, it was exactly the same. So for me, European moving to the Middle East, that was the biggest not risk, but lessons learned.
Yeah, for me, I can add maybe two learnings, and this is also for the corporate. What really made this successful is that also Property Finder knew where they want to go and what they want to achieve. So, and that joins the argument from Laurent, where your strategy needs also to be clear on what are you looking for. And the second learning would be also for corporate to keep the conversation going with startups in different ways. It is difficult for startups to engage with corporate at the right level. So if scouting can help in doing that, that's can be a tremendous value to corporates, because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what is available everywhere, and there are missed opportunities because of that lack of knowledge, and because you don't have the resources, to roam around every startup and every market and in every region. So it helps to have someone to do that, or a platform to do it for you. But just if it's not a platform, just keep the conversations going. Be there to have those conversations with the startup. So these are the two main learning.
Thank you, Fouad and Christophe, for sharing. I think that indeed the important things from what I understood from both of you is to know what your drivers are. So why are you engaging into the collaboration, and what are your main motivations behind the wish to collaborate? Then also one point I would like to stress here is the deciders. This is generally also a very important point, to have on both sides one person who has the decision and the budget power, the decision making and the budget power. So on the side of the startup, it's often the CEO and the founder, but it becomes more challenging on the corporate side because the teams are bigger. Of course, the person might change, and then to engage both sides on the continuous level, that becomes difficult. Then to define a common goal, expectations, what has to be achieved. I think that was important for both of you. Define a common strategy, and so reflect on what your resources are and what do you expect. What are the returns on collaboration, the ROC that you expect from each other. And finally, of course, the human side. So the fact that you mentioned, that it clicked since the beginning and that you kept the conversations running, etc. This is, of course, a very important part as well. Laurent, unless you have any other questions, I would like to start with the questions from the audience. So Christophe, how do you see cooperation with research centers as a corporate? Not startups that have already developed a product. This is the question.
The thing is, the research center, I mean, what you do is you fund research. You don't know what you're going to find. Okay, so there might be an infinite timeline there. What we did do, though, in the past was to acquire a startup which was bound by a tender, whatever it is, to fix a problem for the European Commission that runs on 3 months. It's like a research budget, but there are clear expectations at the end. I've analyzed 2 startups like that, and what I realized is that it was a mean for getting some budget for them to sustain, not to necessarily finance the research. So when you do that approach, you need to be clear about what is your corporate expectation there. It works. There are spin-offs. There are super great company that comes from the research world, but they already have a kind of mature use case, which is not necessarily always the case when you sponsor directly the research. So I would be a bit cautious about that one.
And then we have a question regarding the status of the collaboration now. So you touched a bit upon it, but then I see that Fouad is currently Property Finder's VP, Data and Artificial Intelligence. So Fouad, what's your real involvement with Property Finder and Home Value now that your company has been acquired?
Yes, it's a very nice question. So other than the integration of the capabilities that we had at Home Value, the mission is empower consumers with the best data and the best insights that we can have. And that can come either by adding more data or by transforming data into meaningful insights using advanced technologies in artificial intelligence with machine learning, computer vision, natural language processing, and all of what is available, or even maybe certain stage IoT. So the mission is the same, is delivering on that mission through data and AI.
And as a corporate, we want to give Fouad the floor. So want to use him as an accelerator, building a startup in a corporate world and really accelerate the pace of innovation within our business, be pragmatic and move on quicker than today. That's key.
Yeah, and adding, I think
Good to
also
hear.
that joins the 2 points is adding a little bit of, as Christophe said, when you reach a certain level of growth, things start slowing down. Is adding an edge to that speed. That's, I think, one of the key elements.
But it's I don't know what is easier to acquire or to build a business. What is I will dance around that the answer. There is no golden rule here. What we need to be aware of is that when we acquire a startup, it's loading the P&L. So you can of the corporate. So it's actually an addition to the existing P&L. So you do your budget, and at one point in time, if you do not have a reserve spent for the acquisition, you end up discussing how do you add X million euro dollar to your budget because of the running cost of the acquisition. It's not because you acquire them that they cost nothing. You still have the running cost on top of that. So I think it requires a bit of budget planning upfront to make sure that you are not fooling yourself. You do your budget, you think you're going to make it, and then at one point in time, there's a great opportunity. You acquire that business. How you finance it, it's to be discussed. I didn't debate your point about who the decision maker, but in our case, we had to go to a board, and the board decides give the green light, and then there is a financing mechanism associated to that. But that's not, I would say, the operation of business. Once it's done, then you need to offload, onboard a team of X people with running costs on the technology, and that comes in addition to your P&L.
There's another question from Roy and Saheb. I hope that we have answered your question. I see that yes. So for Roy, he asks Christophe if you see added value in a tailor-made corporate acceleration program where you scout, select, and support, for example, a 4-month support program, startups in piloting or potential equity investment. If yes, so please describe why. If not, also the same.
It's good and doesn't cost that much to have an accelerator fund. The thing is, when you need to find, let's say, 20 startup or 10 startup every 6 months, there is a process associated to that, and potentially what you do is you support the startup and you lose your corporate focus. Now, the way I've been addressing that in a previous slide, it's all about the innovation capability of the corporate. And at one point, you either you stimulate that or you think it's happened organically. What I did at Stepstone, I had a portfolio of 12 initiatives that were elements that we wanted to crack. So there is no solution yet, but mainly problem statement. And the way I was managing that portfolio was through maturity stage, seed, scale, and industrial. And what we did for the seed stage was either we had an internal innovation process, and then we gave them, in that case, it was 1 squad, 1 year, and get out of the corporate overhead. You get a budget on that, and you can do whatever you want to create your market fit. That grew organically from hackathons, from teams' ideas, or in the same range, we could acquire business. But the thing was making sure that they hit at certain point in time the marketplace of job, the HR tech stuff. And once we start incorporating them in the, I would say, the core business model, that's where we change the management type. So we could then potentially completely rebuild the system because it was not scalable. Or we could say, okay, fine, you play with a brand, but now we're going to integrate that in the other brand, and we can forget about your brand. We're going to integrate everything. So we gave the team or each initiative owner a certain budget, full flexibility, and then we grow that initiative over time, or we stop it. If it didn't deliver over a year, then fine, we close it down, we take the lessons learned, and we move to the next one. So that's how I do that. Now, it depends also on the size of your organization. For super large corporate, I think creating this accelerator program makes sense. Property Finder is a scale up, so it makes no sense for us. But that really depends on the objective as well.
Thank you, Christophe. And I see there's one question. Let's take this last question for today. So Christophe, do you also think that corporates would benefit from events such as reverse pitching to engage more with startups or even researchers or technologists?
What type of event? I didn't get the question.
Reverse pitches.
Reverse pitches.
I mean, I'm operating in marketplace for 15 years now. So yeah, if we can build a marketplace where a corporate can pitch a startup, why not? I think, but again, reverse pitch is like, I have an issue, please come and take my money and let's deliver. I think what is important is when you do the acquisition, it should support your business goal. And either you just acquired the technology or the people, there must be a click, it must be a match. You know, the reverse pitch is good, and we got assessed by own value as well, because otherwise they would not have gone with us. We were not the only one pitching, so the assessment is happening anyway. I'm not familiar with this reverse pitch concept, but I sense that it's might not meet the purpose of the corporate.
Thank you, Christophe. I think it's time to slowly move towards the end of our webinar. Thank you, everyone, for your questions in the chat. I hope that Christophe and Fouad have answered them. I'm sure they did. And again, I wanted to say to Christophe and Fouad that it's wonderful to see that this collaboration and acquisition happened in such an organic way, and that the process was quick and efficient. I would say that we can only hope for such kinds of cooperation for startups and corporates. However, again, let me mention that engaging into a startup and corporate collaboration is not always easy. And it's not wishing to discourage you, but to mention a recent research that has been conducted by the Boston Consulting Group. In Europe, 45% of corporates and 55% of startups are actually very dissatisfied or somewhat dissatisfied with their partnerships. And the main reason, as I mentioned already, often lies in the difference that exists in terms of culture, people, expectations, goals, etc. So I would like to thank you all, Laurent, for this, for having me and having us today, and for the organization, and the speakers again for their insights.
So thank you very much, Adele. It was very insightful. Thank you, Christophe and Fouad, for sharing your story. I'm pretty sure each of us listening to your conversation has got something from it for one's own experience. It was great. I'm done. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice lunch and have a nice day forward. We'll share the recording soon after today. Thank you, everyone.